Good Monday morning. Well, we're going to enter into another interruption, if you will, or this parenthetical pause passage. It's almost like there's a parenthesis around Revelation 12:1 through 15:4, where it's describing these details of events that will take place during the tribulation period, but not necessarily in between the seven trumpet judgments and the seven bowl judgments. So we're kind of entering in for the next few weeks in this parenthetical parentheses type moment, if you will. And it begins with Revelation 12:1. And it says, a great sign appeared in heaven. So because this is a sign, it's not a literal occurrence, but kind of a picture of something that is to occur. And it says, a woman was clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Now, I don't know if you remember, but if you've read the story of Joseph in Genesis 37, it says, then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, behold, I've dreamed another dream. That worked out really well if you've never read the story of Joseph. Behold, the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. So the 11 were his brothers, and Joseph with all of his brothers represented the 12. They were the 12 tribes of Israel. That's where the 12 tribes of Israel were birthed. And so here you have this head of a crown of 12 stars. So it's safe to believe that those 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of Israel. So in Job 38, angels are called stars. And so we go on to verse 2. She, meaning the Jews or Israel, because that's kind of what we're talking about here, was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon. So Satan is described as many names in Scripture, and one of them is dragon. And it's not surprising that this dragon is red because of all of the bloodshed and murder that Satan has caused. With 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head were 7 diadems. Okay, these 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns are all a picture of the world government that Satan is going to direct and eventually possess through the Antichrist during the tribulation period. So during the tribulation, Satan is going to be the head of all of government rule on the earth. How? Through the Antichrist. We have never known wicked government like this before. So I want you to think of all the wicked governments we've had in the past. Think of Herod in the time of Jesus. Herod killed all the babies born all the sons that were born 3 and under during the time of Jesus, because Satan back then was trying to get rid of the Messiah. Think of Nero. Nero killed his mother, he killed his wives, he then burned the entire city of Rome down so he could rebuild it, and he blamed it on Christians so that he could kill the Christians. Think of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is responsible for the death of over 40 million people. He lowered, according to a list25.com website, he killed over 11% of the world's population. That's what Genghis Khan did. Stalin took the lives of 20 million people. Hitler took the lives of 11 million people. Yet, there will never have been a more demonic leader than the Antichrist that will rule and reign during the 7 years of tribulation. There's a theological belief that Satan has had a potential Antichrist, end-time Antichrist, in every single generation. That's why I think we've seen all the different murderous dictators throughout history, because Satan's always had a man, because Satan doesn't know when God's going to do things. He's not omniscient. He doesn't have the mind of Christ. He doesn't know God's holy timetable. if you will. So even though we have small, lowercase antichrists throughout generations, there are always people that are antichrist living against God's plan. But there will be a specific man that Satan himself will believe to be indwelled at the beginning of the last 3.5 years of tribulation, and we'll talk about that later. And it will be a form of government like we have never known. Then it goes on, verse 4, his tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. This was a picture of Satan when he was cast out of heaven and took 1/3 of the angels with him. And the dragon, Satan, stood before the woman, the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. This is what I was saying about the time of Herod, when he had all the sons 3 years and under killed, because when the Messiah was born, Satan was right there trying to devour it. It's recorded in Matthew 2:16. It says, then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. So Satan was trying to usurp Jesus' birth. He also tried to usurp Jesus in the wilderness right before Jesus' ministry came to be. He also tried to usurp Jesus in Gethsemane when Jesus was wrestling himself and said, Lord, if it be your will, may this cup pass from me. But then he said these words, but not my will, but yours be done. So he's always been trying to stop what Jesus was going to do. Then it says in verse 5, she gave birth to a male child, to Jesus, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And we know this. Jesus was resurrected and then ascended to God, where he lives now. And the woman fled. Now we're about to go back. See, this is a very different type of passage. So we've been given all this knowledge about Jesus, how he came to be, how Satan tried to usurp this. But now we're going back to the midpoint of the tribulation in this passage in verse 6. And the woman, Israel, fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. So after the Antichrist reveals his true colors, that he really isn't a man of peace, but he's a man of war, and he desecrates this temple that has been resurrected, the children of Israel, a remnant, it's believed, a remnant of the Jewish people are going to flee to this place that is believed to be Petra, which is an actual existing place now, and they're going to be supernaturally sustained by the Lord inside of that place, just like the children of Israel were supernaturally sustained in the wilderness against Pharaoh when they had fled Pharaoh and his rule and reign. So we have this interesting parenthetical moment, if we will, inside of all of the activity that is giving to us a picture of what has been done to try to usurp Jesus, and then what will be done to protect the remnant that is his, the Jewish remnant that is his, in light of the tribulation that is to come. Oh, my friends, God is on the throne now. He who was is he who is, and is also the one who is to come.